A week ago, IGN released this trailer for a new game coming out, 6 Days in Fallujah. Now, for those of you who don't know what this is, it's a tactical shooter that's, of course, going to take place in Fallujah and be about the conflict in there. And also, it was originally announced, I think, about 2008, but was then canceled because of the amount of controversy it had. It looked somewhat promising, and the gameplay looked a little something. It looked like this. And as you can see, again, it looks like a 2008 game. But, yeah, again, this was all that was released, this pre-alpha demo, or this video of it, exactly. And now, like a week ago, this trailer was released. I already seen the trailer for it, I'm not going to react to it, because my reaction really doesn't mean anything. But, not quite sure what to say about it. Well, let's start with the actual conflict itself. Now, it takes, our conflict in Fallujah, I don't know if it actually took place in across the span of 6 days. It was happening in late 2004. I was born in late 2004. I was born October 4th, 2004. So any sort of, I was never aware of this conflict, of course, because A, I wouldn't remember it, and B, also I was very young. I wouldn't be exposed to this sort of thing. So the only way I actually knew about it was from Gamer's video of 6 Days in Fallujah, and they actually changed their thumbnail to that video they used the characters from this trailer, actually. But, yeah, so I recently just found out about this. But the conflict itself I knew about, again, back about a year now, because, again, I watched Gamer's video on it. And, again, the whole thing looks promising. But the original game was the 2008 one, was, again, it was taken off or canceled because of controversy. Because at the time, there weren't exactly many video games going over wars quite like this. Of course, you had things like World War II games. World War II was a long time ago, and more recent conflicts in video games really wasn't a topic that had been addressed or looked into. Nowadays, people are used to this type of thing, but back then, it was a very serious issue. The original Medal of Honor, not original Medal of Honor, but Medal of Honor 2010 received flack because multiplayer allows you to play as the Taliban, and of course, you all know what was happening with them. And, again, this type of sort of conflict, modern-day conflict, hadn't been explored yet. We had Modern Warfare, but that, again, took place in 2011, even though it was made in 2007, 4 years after it was, or 4 years after it was released. So, yeah, kind of conflict that was 4 years ago. Again, this was announced in 2008 originally. Since, yeah, again, the whole Fallujah deal was 4 years ago, so... And again, it's a very controversial topic, so having a game about it, as you can see, led people very, I suppose, astray. But to talk about the game itself, it looks very promising. It looks, again, like a cool tactical shooter, but also trying to give you sort of feel of what the Fallujah conflict was like. Again, I know very little about this conflict. I wasn't exposed to it at all, and the only exposure I ever got was, again, from the Gamer's video. And it's been a while since I watched that, so of course I'm missing out some details of what happened. But nowadays, people are used to this sort of thing, used to this sort of type of game that's focused on wars that have already passed. You know, it's not as bad. Again, Modern Warfare took place just a few years in the future, so it wasn't as controversial because this was an alternate universe sort of conflict. That's why people didn't give it as much flack as opposed to something like Medal of Honor 2010 or, of course, 6 Days in Fallujah. So, the game itself, again, looks very promising. It looks like it's story-based, and that actually would be really cool, that would be really cool to see, because we recently haven't had too many story-based tactical shooters, at least I don't think we have. Last games I remember being tactical-based were from the Rainbow Six series, of course before Siege, that had stories in them. So, yeah, the game itself, again, looks promising, but I think nowadays people would be okay with this sort of thing, maybe because... Again, we've had plenty of military games to sort of focus on topics like this, such as Medal of Honor and Call of Duty. Even if Call of Duty aren't alternate universes, they sort of are what, at least the modern ones, are what sort of eased us into making shooters that focus on wars within the current millennium. My final thoughts are this. If the game stays true to its subject material, which again is subject material I know very little about, I'm sure it will be regarded as a really good game. And I'm sure this game was only made out of respect to the people who fought and died in the Fallujah conflict. And as you can see, I'm not sure if these are developers or soldiers that were in the conflict, but early on, or throughout the video, you see a lot of people talking about the game itself and the conflict. So if it stays true to the subject material, I think people will be okay with this. But if it ends up, I don't want to say making fun of it. I suppose if it's just not true to the subject material, of course it would get a lot of hate and be regarded as a very bad game. Even if the shooting's great, even if everything is great about it, I feel like if a game's not true to its subject material, then it ends up getting a lot of hate, even if it plays really well, because its subject material is very important for the battle it's trying to portray. Take Battlefield 5, for instance, wasn't exactly the truest, and that's why it got a lot of hate, even though initially played pretty well, and people did have fun with it. It will gain a lot of flack. It did gain a lot of flack for just not being true to the subject material, because when you make a game about a war that's already happened, it being accurate is sort of like paying respect to the soldiers that fought and died in the conflict, and everyone else that was involved that was at least on the good side. So it's very important for a war game to stay true to the subject material and sort of illustrate it in a sort of sense. So if this game can do that and pull it off really well, I think it's going to be regarded as a really fun and good tactical shooter that gives people an insight to a conflict that you don't really see talked about much of these days. And again, I don't know how many casualties there were in the conflict. I don't even know if it was actually 6 days. But yeah, I do plan on looking into the conflict itself, because again, I was less than a year old when it was going on. So if it stays true, my final verdict is, if it stays true to the subject material, then I think it will be regarded as a fun and good tactical shooter. But if not, then there's going to be a lot of major problems. This article here by Geek, I think illustrates the original controversy really well. Ex-Bungie developers revive 6 Days in Fallujah, cancel the game about Iraq War's bloodiest battle. So you can see where the controversy of the original game coming from. Now, ex-Bungie developers could mean a lot of things. It being ex-Bungie developers doesn't really mean too much. It gives you some hope, but the game could turn out to be anything. Well, as in, it could turn out to be either good or bad. But more importantly, again, the whole thing about Iraq War's bloodiest battle, yes, that's where the main controversy came from for the original game, for those of you who are wondering. And again, still, don't exactly know how bloody, I personally don't know how bloody that is, but I plan to find that answer soon.